Attention all members of the Solar Federation. Attention all members of the Solar Federation. We have assumed control. We have assumed control. We have assumed control. Dun dun. Good morning, y'all. This is Ned over My Philippine Dreams, one half of the Philippine Dream Team here in Dumaguete City, Negros Oriental, area code 6200. For those interested in getting a hold of our fan club, this is our weekly live cast. I try to do these once a week to address things that are going on in the Philippines that could affect expats or foreigners living, working, studying, coming as tourists to the Philippines. And there's always something interesting going on, especially over the past 7 or so months. There's been some interesting developments going on. So we're going to be talking about that. I got like 5 or 6 things I'm going to talk about. I'm going to take a break every now and then to interact with the community, because again, this is a live cast coming. It's completely live. It's not taped. It's not edited. It's coming at you in glorious 360p half HD because of the limitations of my PLDT, which only has a 0.5 upload speed. So we'll be taking a break every now and then to address comments, but let's get right into it. We got some stuff going on here. First off, Super Typhoon Knock 10 has moved out of the Philippines, has moved out of Luzon. Unfortunately, it left about 18 missing and about 6 dead, and it also resulted in the evacuation of about 1 million Filipinos. And what's ironic, and again, I love irony, is a couple days ago I was complaining about the internet speed because we've been having problems with the internet, especially in the afternoon. And then I went on to the local Philippine news site, the website, and I found out that 1 million people had been evacuated. Now, the great thing about the Visayas living in this area of the Philippines is that it doesn't experience typhoons that much. They usually head towards us, but they head north towards Leyte, Samar, Luzon at the last minute. They dogleg north. We usually, except for Sendong back in 2012, I believe, we usually don't get affected by them. As a matter of fact, we usually get really nice weather when they come through because they're bringing cooler air in beneath them. All right, so let's get into the local news this week in the Philippines. First up, and so it's ironic that I was complaining about the internet speed when all these people, these millions of people, hundreds of thousands of people, had to be evacuated. Again, it's a matter of perspective. When we're feeling down, when we're feeling sorry for ourselves, we don't have to look too far to find somebody who has it a lot worse. So I gotta quit being such a whiny little bitch. So yes, they call it Knock 10 in the Philippines, Pagasa, because when I guess internationally it was Nina, but when it moves into the Philippines area of responsibility, basically the Philippines, they changed the name just to confuse everybody, I think, but it's moved out, and best wishes to everybody affected by that. Next up, President Duterte. President Duterte is once again speaking out against America, against the United States, and he basically said that 3 out of 5 Americans are idiots. And fighting back against criticism from the United States, President Rodrigo Duterte on Thursday, I believe this was the 21st, said 3 out of 5 Americans are idiots. Quote, "The problem with these white people, these American blockheads, is that 3 out of 5 of them are idiots, and only 2 are in their right minds," President Duterte said during a speech at the convergence of Nanay volunteers as Community Drug Watch in Pampanga. "You Americans should just shut up," he added. The president was reacting once again to alleged threats to cut aid to the Philippines because of his administration's bloody campaign against illegal drugs, which has claimed thousands of Filipino lives. "If you are destroying my country, I will kill you," he said. So, and I guess he also threatened to burn down the United Nations building in New York or something. I'm not sure. But he's very verbal. He says what's on his mind. He's very spontaneous. And so these are things that we have to keep in mind as foreigners living in the Philippines, especially being white Americans. Luckily, the black Americans, the Latinos, the Asians, the swarthy Sicilians, people like that might not come under this 3 out of 5 are idiots thing. I'm not sure how that goes. But if you're a white American, he doesn't think too highly of you. And when I actually crunch the numbers, he might be not too far from the truth. But anyways. Okay. And the flip side. Michelle has a new job. One of our subscribers actually offered her a position, so thank you. I don't even know who it is because I try to stay out of these things. But she's got a new position. She'll be starting at January 15th or somewhere around then, right after her birthday when she turns 30. Time to trade her in for a younger model. So, and it's a really good opportunity. The benefits, the pay, everything is good. She's very excited about it. I believe she found out about it the day after Christmas, so it was a really good Christmas gift for her too. She enjoys what she's doing now, teaching English to the Korean kids at the school, and she'll still be doing that part-time. I think she's only going to be working about 2 hours a day doing that because she really likes it. In other news, we got a little bit of drama on the channel, and we'll get into that. Basically, we had the Spaghetti Fest, and the Spaghetti Fest with Bud Brown, Nikki, Nano, and June, who all volunteered to help, was a smashing success. We passed out about 120 meals on Christmas Day. We did it last year, Bud and I, and we decided to do it again this year. Michelle and I donated about $30, and we took about $104 out of the charity kitty that we have. I think there's still about $280 there. So, but somebody got upset because somebody had been leaving comments. I have something going on beyond YouTube, and I'm usually busy, so I don't check comments or respond to messages all that much. People complain about that all the time. But this one guy left this message, and let's talk about it. I actually took his message down because I don't want him catching heat, and I'm also going to change his name. So this is a guy named Tom. He unsubscribed to my channel, and he said, and this was in the Spaghetti Fest video, "I'm disappointed in you, Ned. You allowed this video to be ruined by a bunch of petty, whining cowards that choose to complain and gossip here like little girls about," and he's talking about another vlogger, we'll call him Dieter, "rather than going to his site. And people say Filipinos are too sensitive. Funny. These are not grown men on your channel. Grown, mature men do not participate in this kind of childish behavior. Obviously, your channel has attracted some real scumbags, and they say Dieter is the pervert. Ha, how ironic. I love irony. You once spoke about rules for your channel, but obviously you don't enforce them. I have enjoyed and learned a lot of good info from your channel, but adios. Unfortunately, I'm done watching. Too much drama, pettiness, and hostility from me." Again, this guy's name, we'll call him Tom. I took the comment down because I don't want him catching heat for this. But basically what happened was I wasn't watching the comments for about 2 days, for about 48 hours. I wasn't paying attention to the comments on YouTube because, again, I got other things going on. And some people had left some criticism about this guy. Again, we'll call him Dieter. I wasn't moderating it. Those comments have since been taken down because, again, I really don't like the drama. But you guys got to realize I'm not constantly moderating and checking over comments or messages or anything like that because I got a lot going on. So apologies to Tom. I'm sorry people were speaking bad about Dieter, and I'm sure Dieter doesn't deserve it or anything. And because he seems to be being victimized by a bunch of people, which is a shame, and also a sign of borderline personality disorder. So that's the YouTube vlogger drama. There's always something going on. Oh, and this guy Dieter also uses, I got some problems with this, he uses images of me, Enrique, a lot in his video thumbnails in order to, he basically uses it as clickbait. And also in his comments, he's not only said nasty things about me, but he's said some pretty, the commenters on his channel have said some pretty nasty things about Michelle. So he does it on his channel, but again, I'm not going to do it on my channel because first off, the guy's not in good shape physically, mentally, and basically at this point people jumping on him, it's like kicking him, you know, a dog when he's down. So we're not going to get involved in that. Alright, now something I want to mention real quick, moving away from the drama, is something that happened during Spaghetti Fest. Now before we had Spaghetti Fest, Nano, Nikki, and about 5 other kids, all the kids from Beluga, the house that we built in Beluga for them after they got, their house got demoed, they were squatting in. They all came down, we were having spaghetti at McDonald's, and then they found out that we were going to be doing a Spaghetti Fest. And the kids, you know, some of the kids and June, their dad, volunteered. And later on, when it was all done and we were driving back to the house, Michelle told me, she said, one of the coolest things was one of the kids, before we did it, she said that it was Gangster Rapper actually that said this. He's about 10 years old. He said, we want to help because we've seen Michelle help people, and we've seen other people help people, and you know, we learned how to do it and how good it can be and how good it can feel. And they had an absolute ball. I caught some of it on video. Nano and Nikki and all them involved in that, helping pass out the stuff. So I thought that was really cool. Bit of karma there. What goes around comes around. And it actually made my life a lot easier because it was basically Michelle, Nano, Nikki, and Junjun passing out all the stuff. So me and Bud just got to kick back and relax in the shade because it was hot. It was hot. It's been like 91 last couple days. So I thought that was really cool. And we'll eventually be doing a video on that. And Michelle can tell you the exact story of what transpired. So let's go to the comments real quick. Let's see if we're still transmitting. With the bad internet here, we might not be transmitting. B Bruiser starts it off. Trump 2017. Rory Thomas, hello. Raymond, hello. Truckin'. Dave Jones, great deed Bud and you did. Well, the majority of the money came from people that had donated. So all we did was, it gave us something to do that day, and it was basically all Filipinos that were doing most of the actual grunt work. Me and Bud didn't do a whole lot. B Bruiser, you're still guapo even with your bald head. Thank you for not accusing me of having hydrocephalus. Rory Thomas, have there been any massive changes to the visas for U.S. citizens in the PI to the PI? No. As a matter of fact, locally here in Dumaguete, the process has gotten a lot easier. They've streamlined it. You don't have to provide photos and all that stuff and photocopies of your passport. And it's just one single piece of paper. Jim says, Doom Spaghetti really appreciated. Good job to all. Yeah, they had a great time. It's a win-win for all involved, something like that. I love that shit. Yeah, sorry to hear about the Typhoon. I was watching it. I wasn't really watching it as it broke down, but man, these freaking acts of God here, these nature unleashed, is incredibly nasty, especially when these storms start to stall out over land masses, and it just causes this massive flooding, because, you know, basically all the islands here, it's one giant mountain in the middle, or the series of mountains, and the water just comes rushing down. Brooksy drove through there on Christmas Day. Wished I stopped by at McDonald's. Yeah, it was a nice day. And the day before, Christmas Eve, was gorgeous here. We were up at Upland Resort. Jim also says, I agree with Tom. I hear ya. Too much drama is because you do not post pictures enough of puppies. Puppies, Ned. It's always about the puppies. And I got some coming up. I got some really good puppy footage of little E-Toy. Dogs have a tough life here, though, man. Rory says Dieter needs to come back to the States for a few months and reset. Yeah, he's so sick too. I feel bad for him, and it's not pity. You know, he can't help what he does because he can't see. He lacks the insight to see the cause and effect of his behaviors and what he says. So I don't hold him responsible. He's just a sick dude. Christopher Lane, did McDonald's give you any sort of a discount? That's a good question. No, they didn't. And we probably should have asked. We probably should have tried to set it up beforehand. This was kind of a last minute thing. They might have done that, but the crew there was super cool because, you know, that was a lot of spaghetti meals for them to put together. And they did a fantastic job. They stacked them all in boxes, the sodas and everything, so it was really easy to disperse it. I live in Wayne says, Wayne Seymour, I live in Ilo and get a kick out of all two morons who envy us living here. Tisk tisk. Well, yeah, I don't know about envy, man. This, you know, it's a lower cost of living in the Philippines, but overall it's a lower quality of life when you compare it to a first world. I gotta do a video on that at some point too. And I'm not saying that in a negative way, but just when it comes down to the basics, infrastructure, medical care, shopping, access to stuff like that, and the heat, you know, the lack of emissions, all that. Raymond Huffman, haha, Chris. Hey, Christopher. He's referring to Christopher Lane, who's got a YouTube channel also, by the way. Go check it out. I was just watching your videos until I saw Ned's livecast going, haha. Yeah, the B Bruiser, still haven't heard a thing about the death in Maasin City. It happened. It's on his sister's Facebook page. His remains have been returned. He was cremated here, and he has been interred in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And again, that disturbs me when they're not reporting on this. That's kind of concerning when they're not talking about things. All right, let's get into some of the things that I'm doing, because when all is said and done, we can have spaghetti fest, we can talk about typhoons, but at the end of the day, it's all about me. NED over at MPD. So I'm reading a good book. Bill Bryson, Short History of Nearly Everything, is an excellent read. It's basically nonfiction, but he's using his wry British humor. And he actually didn't live that far from where I lived in the U.S. He's an excellent author. He also wrote A Walk in the Woods, which is a hilarious recount of doing the parts of the Appalachian Trail. And it's really an interesting book because it's nonfiction, and it just talks about a lot of things like universal things, life, biology, all that stuff. And you learn a lot. Like, for example, I didn't know that the average human being lives for about 650,000 hours. That's about all we got, so make the most of it. So that's an excellent book. I highly recommend it. I'm probably going to read A Walk in the Woods again after I'm done with that. Also, podcasts. One of the things that I've really enjoyed doing, because when I'm working and stuff, I like to listen to something. I usually listen to NPR because I'm a liberal socialist commie. But sometimes I'll listen to podcasts. And some of my favorite podcasts, of course, we got to mention Radiolab first. If you don't know what Radiolab is, and if you have an iPhone or you have a Samsung phone, an Android phone, you can get Podcast Addict, and basically it's got a search engine in it, and you can subscribe to all kinds of different podcasts. My favorite is Radiolab, and Radiolab was like the original podcast. It's been around for years, maybe close to a decade at least, I think. This American Life also. And it's really interesting because, again, a lot of it has to do with science and how it applies to our day-to-day lives. And the same guys that have been doing Radiolab have been doing it ever since it began. And the rapport they have is really good. I also listen to the Joe Rogan podcast because I'm a big UFC fan. And Joe's really interesting. Well, until they start smoking weed and drinking and they get too wasted and they start slurring the words and stuff. But he's also into like self-improvement and learning new things and expanding, trying to gather knowledge about the human condition to try to make himself a better person. I think that's really interesting. And he has a lot of cool guests on. I also listen to Duncan Trussell, who has been on Joe Rogan's podcast more than a few times. He's a total hippie, but he's also a comedian. He's very funny. He's into like expanding one's consciousness and learning about the human condition. His stuff can get pretty deep, some of the guests he has on sometime. But again, these things are interesting because it's not only about knowledge and about, being exposed to different perspectives and stuff, but it's about trying to become a better person. Also, speaking of the UFC, and this is the last thing I'll talk about before I go to the comments once again, we finish this live cast. The best fight I have ever seen in my life, UFC, because I'm way behind the curve in watching these UFC events because I got, work and all this stuff going on, was UFC 206, Cub Swanson versus Doo-Ho Choi. And Doo-Ho Choi is this South Korean fighter, and Cub Swanson's been around for a while. These guys went at it toe to toe, head to head. They left everything in the octagon. It was brutal, and it was really inspiring. And I understand some people don't like UFC because it's like, rooster fights and gladiatorial combat and stuff, but I think it's the most real sport there is. You're putting a lot on the line, and you're also pushing yourself to your utmost limits. And that's what these guys did. They just put it all out there. Cub Swanson ended up winning, but he got rocked a few times in the first round. And it was just an excellent fight, and it was really inspiring to see people push themselves that hard. I know I couldn't do that. Hell no. See, the only martial art I know is the sucker punch. I'd use the sucker punch, and if that doesn't work, I run. And as I'm getting older, I'm getting slower, I'm getting heavier. So that's really not too much of an option anymore. All right, let's go back to the comments. Christopher Lane, hey Ray, this is the first live cast I caught. Christopher, these are really actually easy to do. There's free software, it's called OBS. You just install that, you fiddle around with it, you learn how to do it, and you just live cast it straight off YouTube. And it's cool because you get to interact with the community. Where do you get your weather? Having a hard time. Where do you get your weather? James asked, where do you get your weather? Having a hard time finding a good one? What, a good weather? Or an app or something? I just basically have that weather app thing. But, you know, with the Philippines, every island basically has its own little microclimate. So unless there's like a low pressure area going through, you never know what the weather's going to be like. Danelle Wind asks, Ned, how long should you wait for your significant other to get home or contact you if you are away 8,000 miles? I don't understand that question. I should have read it before I said it out loud. I have no idea. Dwight Butler asks, where do you catch NPR? I catch it right off their website. I got the little tab right up here. I click on it, and you can also go to their different programs and listen to their programs, specific programs. I like the BBC mostly. Those cultured British accents make even bad news sound palatable. Bruiser says, I love snorkeling, so God Bay. I can spend days on the boat, then head back to my house. Yeah, snorkeling here is absolutely stunning. You get to some areas. I've seen just about every fish there is except for sharks. I haven't seen a shark yet, and I don't want to see a shark. Because my babysitter brought me and my sister, I was like 10 years old. Was it 1977? Yeah, brought us to see Jaws. And man, I've never been the same since. YouTube has an even shorter history of nearly everything, Bill Bryson. I'll check that out, Roger Davis. Thank you. Vay Lamb says, hey Ned, have you been to Davao? I may have missed that video. Nope, I've never been to Davao, never checked it out. At some point I'm going to. Right now with all the stuff that's going on in Mindanao, and I know Davao is generally a safe place, except for that little island right off it where all those guys got kidnapped. But I've seen videos of it and stuff, and I've talked to guys that live in Dumaguete now that lived in Davao for a while, and they said, you know, the Bruiser says, well, nobody said anything about you being a communist, but a liberal, yes, but I think you can be brought back to reality. Yeah, hope springs eternal, plus I'm getting older, you know. If you're young and you don't, you know, if you're not a liberal, you don't have a heart. If you're older and you're not a conservative, you don't have a brain. David Agnew asked, best place to be for New Year's in Dumaguete. Pagasa is the best for weather. I'd say right on the boulevard. That's probably what we're going to do this year. Hang out on the boulevard to see the fireworks. The whole city's basically going to be one big giant fireworks display. It's already started. The kids got their little bazookas. They, you know, take cans and they tape them all together. They put lighter fluid in it and they light it up, and it sounds like a bomb. I actually went through an intersection the other day and I literally thought it was a bomb. Ziggy Pop says, Davao is safe and beautiful. I live here. It is very safe and clean. Yep, I got to check it out. I'm going by what other people are saying. So that's about it. That's our weekly live cast. We talked about the Super Typhoon. We talked about Michelle's new job. Yay, Michelle. We talked about President Duterte. 3 out of 5 white Americans are blockhead idiots. We talked about somebody commenting about talking about other vloggers on my channel, and I agree with them, and I really, you know, and they can't really get in here to interact with these guys or counter it, so I take them down, and I took those down. And we talked about the Spaghetti Fest, and the Spaghetti Fest was a big success. We'll probably try to do that every year or something like that, have something going. And it wasn't just, you know, because it felt good for us, but it was seeing everybody that was participating in it, you know, having such a good time. So this is Ned over at Philippine Dreams. Thanks and take care. Hope you all had a good Christmas or are having a good Hanukkah or a Kwanzaa, or and your Festivus is going good. The airing of the grievance haven't resulted in too many problems. And next livecast probably won't be until 2017. So you all take care, be well, and see ya next time. Peace.